Hi, Cecil. Hi, Cecil.
Oh, is that you, Paul? Hello.
Yeah, that was a delay in the audio. That was weird.
Huh.
I said, hi, Cecil.
Is that you, Paul? Oh, I see. It's on my side, so I'm gonna. Okay, no more delay. So what I do is I prepare. We started streaming, and so I put that little. You'll see a little. Hopefully, you'll see a little. City of Campbell meeting begins shortly.
I do see that.
All right. We are in
But
business.
what was causing the delay?
I'm streaming to another to YouTube, and that YouTube source is also broadcasting a couple seconds later. So what I do is I just muted it, and then the delay goes away.
I see.
So,
Yeah,
gentlemen, the webinar is live on YouTube now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Cecil. I'll
All right.
see you later.
Okay. See ya.
Oh. Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing tonight?
So Susan, for some reason you've stopped or someone has stopped the video.
I got mine back. Can you see me yet?
I can see you, but I can't get mine back.
So now Liz can't get on now. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. If people can hang in there for a minute or two.
Okay, I'm on again.
Okay, do we have everybody? Where's Paul? Oh, there he is. City Clerk, are we ready to start?
You're ready.
Great, thank you. I call to order this regular meeting of the City of Campbell City Council on this Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. This regular City Council meeting is conducted via telecommunication and is compliant with the provisions of the Brown Act and Executive Order N-29-20 is issued by the Governor. The City Council meeting is also being live streamed on Channel 26, the city's website, and YouTube. Deputy City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman.
Here.
Councilmember Bybee.
Present.
Councilmember Resnikoff.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Here.
Mayor Landry.
Here, sorry, I was getting some feedback. I'd like to start and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a special presentation tonight. I'd like to introduce President Stephanie Kashmina from West Valley College. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm fine. How are you?
Okay. So I understand you have some slides you're going to share.
I do. I have a very short presentation. I'm delighted to be here and just wanted to check in to say hello and share some updates from West Valley College. So if you're ready for me, I will go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good evening, council members, mayor, and other participants. I'm just going to share. Thank you for inviting me again. I'm delighted to be here. As you may know, our former president of West Valley College, Brad Davis, is now the chancellor of the West Valley Mission Community College District. And I stepped into my role as president of West Valley College in January of this year. Perfect timing to face multiple crises, both global and local. And so my feet are to the fire, so to speak, in terms of addressing multiple issues that are challenging all of us. So what I'd like to share with you is just some updates from the college, things that we are working on, and some of our challenges and opportunities. So let's see. I can move this forward. So in the spring of 2020, we were faced with multiple pandemics, as we were nationally and globally. But we enrolled about 8,500 students. We had an accreditation team visit, which, as you may know, institutions of education require accreditation on a regular cycle. So we had our 6-year cycle visit the same week that we were shut down due to COVID. So that was an interesting intersection there, but we managed through it and we were reaffirmed in June. So we're very fortunate and happy about that. However, like the rest of the country, we, or specifically here in California, the county, we shut down our on-campus operations the week of March 11th and moved all of our classes online. And subsequently, as we all know, on May 25th, we all witnessed the murder of George Floyd, which has had impacts across the country and indeed the globe. In the summer of 2020, as we were dealing with both of these issues, and impacts. We were fortunate to be able to graduate 1,100 students, have about 4,000 students enrolled during the summer, do training for hundreds of faculty while we were putting in place our social distancing protocols and our return to campus plans. This fall, we are engaged in a lot of activities. We have almost 8,000 students enrolled, almost 1,000 sections. Some of the sections are on campus. We've got training academies for our faculty. We're engaged in a 5-year master planning process, and we're doing substantial hiring at the administrative level. We're also finalizing our anti-racism action plan and engaging in a lot of social justice training. We have a special program at the college that is not found at every community college, which is an Office of Student Needs. It's for specifically former foster youth, undocumented students, homeless or housing insecure students, and food insecure students. And we distribute thousands of bags of groceries, meal gift cards, bag lunches, and hundreds of laptops to students who are in need. We've also established a giving program based on these needs. It's may not be widely known, but about 50% of all college students across the country are food insecure, and 60% are housing insecure. 2,000 of our students use the food pantry, and we've listed here some of the giving amounts that support our students in the Office of Student Needs. We also set up some special accounts for employees in our district who lost homes. You may also have folks in your community or within your sphere who have been affected by the fires. We had 3 employees who were impacted and multiple others, about 30 other families who were evacuated. So we've set up fundraising for those folks in our community. We had a special keynote speaker for our beginning of the semester professional development day to talk about nonviolent communication and how to use that in discussing social justice issues. And we're doing a lot of self-reflection on social justice issues and how we can do better at the college to serve students of color. We also are moving forward with hope and optimism because we know that all of our efforts impact the experience of students at our campus. And I see it as my role to try and provide hope to our community so that we can move forward in a positive direction. So this is just a shot of our faculty from a couple of years ago. I'm thrilled to be in this position. I feel very honored, and I'm honored to be here tonight with all of you to meet you and be able to see the great work that you do. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You are
you guys
most
have a great
welcome.
college. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next on our agenda is communication.
Hey, welcome. I was just going to say welcome. West Valley College started in Campbell, so you are near.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Gibbons. West Valley College was born in Campbell and raised in Saratoga. We will never forget our roots. We've been around for 56 years, and we always consider Campbell our first home. So thank you for welcoming me here, and I do consider you our first home.
Great, thank you very much. Next on our agenda are communications and petitions, which we have none. Next is oral request. This is the portion of the meeting which is reserved for persons wishing to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda. City Clerk, do we have any people wishing to speak tonight?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Next is Council Mayor's announcements. The City of Campbell continues to work closely with our partnering agencies to monitor how the coronavirus is impacting our communities. We are actively monitoring the information provided by the CDC and reviewing the guidance provided by the County Public Health Department. Please continue to visit the city's website on the most current up-to-date information regarding COVID-19 on any adjusted city services canceled events, police department services, the Campbell Community Center, and other business resources. Say yes to vote, say no to silence. Voting is now easier than ever in Santa Clara County. The Voters' Choice Act emphasizes the convenience for all voters. All registered voters should have received a ballot by now, and then they can automatically vote by mail or place it in the Registrar of Voters drop boxes. City Hall does have a drop box out front if that's convenient. Voters who prefer to vote in person can do so still at any voting center that will be open throughout Santa Clara County starting the Saturday, October 31st. Voters centers will offer sanitary in-person options. You can visit our website at campbellca.gov for other election information. The city clerk is currently accepting applications for unscheduled vacancy on the Civic Improvement Commission and 2 vacant positions on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. To be eligible for appointment on this volunteer advisory committee, applicants must reside in the city of Campbell and must be at least 18 years of age. For more information about the Civic Improvement Commission or the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, please visit our website at campbellca.gov. The application deadline is this Friday, October 23rd. The city of Campbell has partnered with the County of Santa Clara to offer COVID-19 testing. Community testing is available at the Community Center's Orchard City Banquet Hall. For more information, go to sccfreetest.org. The Campbell Museum is reaching out to our community and asking for assistance to help document the COVID-19 pandemic. It is important to document this historic time. Museums will use these primary sources of journals, text, email, images, videos, etc., to curate what the community and the world experienced during this COVID-19 global pandemic. Please visit campbellmuseums.com for more information. On Friday, October 23rd, that's this week, the Campbell, oh, I'm sorry, you guys. Excuse me. Darn it. Sorry. The Campbell Museum this Friday will present via Zoom History at Home, Haunted Places of the San Francisco Bay Area with paranormal investigator Jeff Dreyer. There's a nominal fee of $10. Reservations can be purchased at campbellmuseums.com/shop. This week is National Friends of the Library Week. Please join our council and the county's library district in honoring our Friends of the Library groups for their hard work, dedication, and the time spent supporting our libraries. Each of our library's Friends group is independently operated to help support the local library through fundraising, volunteering, and awareness. Friends of the Library groups also host used book sales with proceeds supporting library services. Again, a big thank you to our library supporting groups. Thank you. Sorry about that. I thought I had my phone on silent. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Is there any council member who wishes to pull an item off of consent? I see none. Has the deputy city clerk received any items or discussion on the consent calendar?
We do not.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move items 2, 3, and 4.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Waterman,
Aye.
Councilmember Vibey. Aye. Councilmember Resnikoff,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye. That motion passes. Now we're on to public hearing and introductions of ordinances. Item number 5 is a public hearing to consider the application of Michael Schwager for a planned development permit to allow construction of an approximate 7,000 square foot single-story industrial building. We have our senior planner, Daniel Fama, here.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Daniel.
Hi, good evening. May I quickly share my screen here? Yes, this is an application for a planned development permit to allow construction of an approximately 7,000 square foot light industrial building, along with a park modification and a utility variance to allow retention of existing overhead utility lines. This is the project site. It is a 17,500 square foot property located at Florence Way at Sunny Oaks Road within the PD Plan Development Zoning District and the Light Industrial General Plan Land Use District. Here we have a photograph of the property as it exists today. This parcel was created as part of a May 2012 City Council approval for a comparable building and lot split. While the building was never constructed, the lot split and the rezoning associated with it was implemented back in 2012. Here we have a site plan of the proposed building. Florence Way is a private street that functions more of a type of driveway rather than a traditional street. This allows parking spaces to be placed perpendicular with the street along the edge of the building. The proposal does include 15 parking spaces where 18 would normally be provided. Here we have some illustrations showing the architectural design of the building. It incorporates a split block and alternating shades of gray with a more contemporary entry treatment at the front for a little more architectural character, generally consistent with the general plan's policy guidance on architectural design. As noted in greater detail in your staff report and the Planning Commission staff report, the applicant is requesting a parking modification permit to allow a reduction in parking from 18 stalls to 15 stalls. The applicant contends that the reduction is warranted because of the proximity to public transportation as well as bicycle facilities. The Planning Commission was generally supportive of the applicant's request and is recommending to the City Council approval of the project with that reduction of 3 stalls. However, because the property would be substandardly parked, the Planning Commission's recommendation does include a condition of approval that would restrict the allowable land uses to manufacturing and warehousing. Any other uses would require approval of an administrative plan development permit and parking modification permit that would be reviewed by the community development director. This would allow for a greater degree of review for those types of uses that would have a greater parking demand than normally associated with manufacturing and warehousing activity. In conclusion, the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the plan development permit with a parking modification and a resolution approving a utility variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there any questions from the council? Liz?
Just a quick one, Daniel. I looked for it and didn't see it. Is there any condition that prohibits overnight parking? Because we have that challenge on a lot of locations. I just said storage, just said no outdoor storage, but it meant cars overnight.
Let me double check. I do not believe there is anything that specific.
So I would just ask if your thoughts on doing that.
There is nothing that would prohibit parking overnight, no.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there other council questions? No? Okay. So they're 3 spaces short. They're asking for a parking modification. And you made a comment that should they change use, that this would be reevaluated as administrative permit. But there's no room for the extra 3 spaces. So would that mean the building would be torn down if they did come back?
No. It would simply be a chance to evaluate that particular proposal. So for instance, within our light industrial areas, we do allow fitness facilities such as martial arts studios. So a key factor there would be the number of clients. how many individuals would be going at any one time. So it would allow us a way to restrict the activity appropriate with the parking that's provided.
Okay, so you're not saying they could potentially add parking later, because I don't see any room to do that.
Correct. There's no physical space to add any additional parking.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak, City Clerk?
There is not.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to announce the applicant, Michael Schwager, and you have 5 minutes if you'd like to speak.
Good evening. Yeah, I'll keep this very brief. Daniel did a great job introducing the project, but I thought maybe I'd touch a little bit on the parking modification. Try to share my screen here. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
So yeah, Daniel introduced the project, but I'd like to talk about the parking situation here. This is just a rendering of the project. It is a light industrial building, but I think our architect did a pretty good job trying to make it a little bit more welcoming, doing the architectural finishes in front to kind of liven up the neighborhood. But I thought maybe I'd introduce ourselves for a bit, because we're likely going to be owner occupied. We're a family-owned company in the Bay Area, been here for about 45 years. We likely use this building as a satellite facility. We have 3 similar buildings in San Jose, and we're looking to expand, and we're actually looking to hopefully move our whole operation to Campbell eventually. We're an engineering contractor, primarily work on bridges, post-tensioning specialty contractor. We also do structural repairs, retrofits, of course, some real estate development. And then we also have a transportation division where we design and install and then operate and maintain automated people mover systems. So we're very familiar with the challenge of transportation, the importance of having adequate parking, and of course that last mile challenge. When we found this site, we're really excited about, of course, its proximity to Highway 17, but also its close proximity to other forms of alternate transportation, being right next to the bike trail, close to light rail, and of course, we have the bus system. If you look at the 1 mile radius, that last mile, you can see our project is well inside that 1 mile radius. But nowadays, you got to be honest, people don't want to walk a mile. We typically look at that ½ mile radius. And you can see we're just outside. But every day, this circle is really getting larger and larger with the use of Uber and more cycling and more e-bikes and more e-scooters. So these circles are getting larger and larger every year. If you look at our proximity to the bus lines, you can see all 3 of them are within that walking radius. But what really excited me was the proximity to the bike lane. I'm an avid cyclist, and right here, we're literally about 500 feet from the bike path. So if you look at the Campbell citywide bike map, this is pulled right off of the city map, and if you zoom in a bit, you can see we're surrounded by not just the creek trail, but we have the bike lane, we have the trail, and then we also have the main thoroughfare Winchester, which is a designated bike route. So we're 500 feet from a bike lane, 600 feet from a bike trail, and 800 feet from a bike route. We're not talking miles, we're talking feet. But what does that all mean? I ride my bike to work every once in a while, and I have to store my bike inside my office, and we don't have the facilities to have a shower, and I'm sure my colleagues here appreciate that. But in this site, we're not only adding the required bike parking out front, we're also going to have indoor storage for bicycles, scooters, and motorcycles as part of our development. And then, of course, we're going to have the showering facilities to practice proper hygiene. And you can see on this diagram here, you can see what we're trying to build for the interior as well. And really, I mean, Daniel talked about the parking. This isn't a standard lot where you throw the parking in the back. We have a very wide private road where we have plenty of room to put the parking on the side. And you can see we really maxed out at 15 spaces. When this project was originally approved by planning about 7 years ago, I believe they had 12 spots. We were able to increase it by 3 by taking one of the driveways out, one of the roll-up doors, and then reconfiguring our trash enclosure. So we really maxed out this property at 15 spaces without doing any mechanical lifts or any of that. But what's the real justification for the parking modification? Like I said before, the close proximity to public transit. That last mile has become shorter due to the increased use of bikes and e-bikes and the shared scooters, and of course the Ubers and the Lyfts. Also, alternate forms of commuting are increasing popularity, reducing the need for parking. We're seeing it every year. People are really getting away from using cars. I don't know how many millennials I talk to that say they never plan on owning a car. They don't want a car. And also surrounding cities, if you look at the surrounding comparable cities of size of Campbell, and also industry guidelines, all of them require substantial less parking. I think the Institute of Transportation Engineers, if you would calculate it for them, you'd need 5 to 7 spots, and we're providing 15 spots. And like I said at the beginning, we have 3 buildings, about 8,000 square feet here in San Jose, and doing the exact same thing we plan on using this building for, and we calculate that we'd need 6 spaces. So obviously with 15 spaces, we're well over twice the capacity for our intended use. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration, and I would love to build a project in the great city of Campbell.
Great, thank you. Can you take down your slides so I can see everybody?
I will try.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yeah, we are open now to discussion, and then Michael, you can come back in 3 minutes after we have our conversation.
I actually just wanted to ask a question now of the applicant. We typically allow that, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation very much. That isn't the easiest site to get in and out of to 17 in San Tomas. Are you planning any overnight parking?
We don't plan on any overnight parking. And I know that is a challenge in that neighborhood. We have a lot of RVs that are dumped there every night. Yeah. And I've even talked to people while walking down the street, and they dump cars there at night because their residential doesn't have enough parking. So they use Sunny Oaks as their dump site. So we obviously don't want that. We don't want to promote that, and we don't intend to do that.
Yeah, it's once it starts, it's hard to protect and move forward. And just an FYI, the city doesn't have a policy about electric scooters and skateboards and bikes yet.
Not yet.
Thank you.
Anybody else have discussion items or questions? I don't see any. I would just like to thank you for really, truly embracing bicycles. People can say they put in a bike rack, but they don't always put in lockers and especially showers. So I appreciate that you are providing those amenities to the employees at your business. I am also concerned about the night parking potential. Daniel, I have a question for you. Is this a condition of the permit that we can add?
Certainly. I mean, you would probably need to define what overnight constitutes. I mean, generally, the allowable hours of operation as currently established are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So perhaps overnight could be anything after 11 p.m. and prior to 6 a.m. since there really should be no reason for anyone to be parked there on the property.
Okay. So Michael, would you like to have your closing remarks?
I think I've said all that I need to say, and I just appreciate your time and your consideration.
And the building looks great on the corner. compared to most industrial buildings, that actually looks really nice. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, I'm going to close the public hearing, right, Andrea? We don't have anybody who wants to speak.
That's correct.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? You're on mute, Liz. You're still on mute.
I know why. I was trying to read and be unmuted at the same time. The public, let's see, the city council takes the following action: adopts a resolution approving a planned development permit with a parking modification permit to allow construction of a 7,002 square foot single-story industrial building, and adopt a resolution approving a variance to allow retention of the existing overhead utility lines with the addition of the condition to allow no overnight parking from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Do we have a second on the motion? I don't see anybody making a second on the motion.
I'll second.
Rich? Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Can I have a comment first, please? On the
Yes.
motion? So I just want to understand the overnight. So that's, obviously, we don't want people parking overnight on any streets, but these people be responsible just for the parking spots they have. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah.
When we say no overnight parking, that's in their lot.
Yes, absolutely.
No, they go out at 9, 8, 7 p.m. and leave. What's expected of them if this report comes in that there's somebody doing that? Just wondering from an enforcement standpoint, how
It's actually, oh, sorry.
Yeah, Daniel, yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose if there are repeated issues where individuals are complaining that vehicles are being parked there overnight, that the property owners would have their own desire to ensure that that's not happening, because that effectively would be trespassing as well. Probably wouldn't require too much proactive enforcement from the city because of that. But
So they need to fence in their whole parking lot or what?
No.
yeah, they would likely.
I'm wondering how this is practically how it gets done, because we have other businesses there too.
I mean, I suspect it would require some sort of overnight security drive-by to periodically check the sites if it came down to that.
I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Hang on, Liz. Please let Daniel finish, then you can speak.
Oh, I was done.
Oh, sorry. Okay. There's a little lag here.
Yeah, I know. It's tired to do this. Thank you.
Wait, hang on a quick second. Paul, does that answer your question?
No, I guess, and I'm not trying to make it into bigger. So I'm really wondering how much control somebody has, or what's the implication if somebody is violating the law on private property. What's the implication for the applicant? That's what I'm asking.
So
I'm going to let Bill. Oh,
well, let me see if Bill can agree. My thought was that this would give the applicant leverage to have police action if there was a problem on his property because of the cars and the vans parking overnight. It's very clear that there's no parking overnight allowed, and they'll have an extra tool in their ability. That's what I was thinking.
let's hear from Bill, please.
Private property, they could put those signs up anyway.
The effect of having a condition would be to put an onus on the property owner to make sure that there are no vehicles parked there overnight, and the property owner could be subject to administrative citations, possibly criminal citations, though that probably is unlikely in this scenario. But it would put the onus on the property owner by having a condition such as that. I suppose an alternative would be to simply require them to sign it for no parking and allow for towaway. There are certain language you have to allow towing off the property, but that's an option as well.
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So it actually makes it worse for the property owner by adding that?
Well, it creates potential exposure for the property owner in terms of exposure to fines and from the city.
So Paul,
If I can follow up, given what I know, I would prefer to just put in a clause for signage. But without it, if we never discussed this, Daniel, would somebody be allowed to park there overnight?
Yes, I mean, there would be no restriction. I mean, if for some reason the owner needed to leave his vehicle on the property, that would be his right normally.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, under our camping ordinance, there are a certain number of spaces that we currently allow owners of private property to make available for parking overnight.
So this might contradict that. I mean, I don't know if it was open, but I'd make a friendly amendment that instead of, as stated, we change it to mandatory signage that would help the property owner monitor that. What Bill just said essentially says we may not be able to stop 100% if they want to put somebody there.
That's fine. I actually was trying to help him out.
No, I understand that. That's why I was a little confused what this means. But to me, signage might accomplish the same thing and not some burden on the property owner if he can't control it.
let's hear from Gary. I see you turned on your screen.
Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions. I think a lot of these overnight parking issues ultimately come down to the business owner. I think the signage is a good idea, but putting any kind of condition in there may create more of a code enforcement issue. And if there is signage up at the business that prohibits it, the onus would still fall on the business owner to do the actual towing. It wouldn't be a city responsibility.
Okay, so Liz, Paul asked for a friendly amendment.
I already said yes.
So you're taking off the last part beyond what it's printed on the agenda, and are we adding in about signing?
I am accepting the friendly amendment to add signage. Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have the seconder? I got a thumbs up from Rich. Okay, so can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Waterman.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee. Aye. Councilmember Resnikoff.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gibbons.
Aye.
Mayor Landry.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you, Michael, for your presentation, and welcome to Campbell.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to you guys moving in.
Look forward to meeting you in person one of these days.
One of these days.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you do stay on the call, yep, just turn your video off. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to unfinished business, which is item number 6. And this is to receive an update from the city's general plan consultant on the status of the general plan update and next steps necessary to advance the general plan through the city's decision-making process. And we have our city manager, Brian Leventhal, first.
Thank you, Madam, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This process to revise the general plan started several years ago. It's been a long, arduous process. And I think since that time, a lot of work has been done by our consultant and the GPAC, and we recognize that level of work that has been done. Today, what we're intending is that we're going to talk about the process to complete the remaining work. There's work to be done. Staff report outlines some of the key tasks that remain in the project scope. However, that there's some additional issues or tasks that need to be discussed as part of that future process. And that is developing a mechanism for receiving input from council members on high-level policy directions in the draft plan. An example is that council needs to address the land use map and the proposed changes and significant policy statements contained throughout the plan. The process moving forward has raised several issues about consistency with the ever-changing state laws, with the future work on the climate action plan, with work on implementation ordinances and upcoming future housing element development. I suggest that the process moving forward will also help to clarify how these items will be addressed in that timeline or as an extension of that timeline. The city consultant, Ben Ritchie from De Novo Planning, is on the call this evening and is prepared to discuss the remaining tasks and the scope of work to complete the plan. Staff is here tonight to receive the council's feedback. And based on your feedback, staff will plan on returning to the council with an updated outline of the process and a timeline to complete the plan based on what we hear from the council this evening. So with that, I will leave it to you, Mayor, if the council's pleasure is to receive a presentation by the consultant, or if you want to go into questions on that process.
Would the council like to have a short presentation, or would you like to go right into questions? Rich?
I'll leave it to Paul in a second, but I mean, my issue, which is consistent on here, has been if you just sort of even just set me loose on this and said, okay, come up with high level policy questions on this, I would easily eat up an hour just myself, and I'm not somebody to do that. I'm assuming with others on the council we'll have a lot more hours. So the question is going to be, how do we divvy it up into sections that we'll talk about? Or, I'm prepared if we say, let's have a 12-hour session at some point, we'll do a 12-hour session. But or me, or obviously whoever succeeds me, probably more likely, would have that discussion. But it would be nice at some point, let Ben talk, that's fine. But the question is going to be, which questions are okay through this meeting, the next meeting, the meeting after that, and which ones should leave alone, because there is, again, if I have a lot of questions, I'm expecting a lot of questions and comments here, because this is the very first time we've been able to sit around and really go over this document, and it's obviously a big document. So no critiquing Ben, by the way, obviously, I think it's a document. I think it just needs a lot of discussions. There's a lot of sort of fundamentals. So that's my only thing is trying to structure it. Thank you.
Okay, and Paul or Ann or Liz, any opening comments?
I would have some, yeah. I'll keep it brief because I know we're in questions. So as far as the presentation, I guess if it's short, what I'd like to avoid, maybe Ben, is going over history or where we were and all that. We've done that before, and it doesn't help a lot. Understanding where the process is going would help. So I know we're not in comments, so let me ask, and I'll preface it so you understand where I'm coming from. When I review this, to me, I see a few areas that I want to discuss. I think the GPAC did a good job, but somebody on the GPAC even said, now it's up to the council to parse this. Policies that I may disagree with, partially or wholly, that we're going to have big discussions on policies. But I also see in actions some that are I'll call too specifically written, and I don't think are appropriate to be in this type of plan that are more council directions. So I'll leave this one question. If we make modifications to actions because we want to make them more general than specific, or because they shouldn't be in there because they're council directives later, does that put a big stop to this plan, or is that a minor change? Assuming that we're not changing policies, just the examples of actions to implement those policies.
And if you'd like me to jump in here, I can respond directly to that.
Yeah, if that makes sense. I mean, yeah.
It does. So good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Ben Ritchie, De Novo Planning Group.
Hi, Ben.
Good to see everybody.
I didn't want to cut you off, but you can see we all have a lot of comments, so
no, completely understand. And I'm here to help. Let me start with, I won't give my presentation, but I'll give you the 14-second version of it. In terms of history, we've completed all of the major milestone documents and work products: the background report, the land use alternatives report, the issues and opportunities report, the public outreach summary report. We've done 18 meetings with your GPAC, and we now have a cover-to-cover draft general plan that the GPAC developed, inclusive of the land use map that they have blessed. And you'll recall from your September 1st meeting that they said it reflects our direction. It's ready for the council to deliberate and change, modify, take action on, and the GPAC didn't feel they needed more meetings. So I think we're at a stage now where the specific council input on the nuts and bolts, because there's a lot in there to unpack. So Councilmember Resnikoff, to your question about can you change actions and still be okay? The short answer is yes, absolutely. Okay. You have all the discretion in the world in terms of how you frame implementation of this. And with anything in life, take my comment with a grain of salt. If some actions are critical to complying with state law, I won't say that eliminating every single action would necessarily be okay, but in general, if you wanted to
And Mayor, no, okay, answer. Mayor, just one comment. When we get into discussion, I'm happy to give like 1 or 2 examples of what I mean by those categories, and then my thoughts on maybe how we accumulate everything. But that's my only question for you.
Okay. Anne, do you have comments or questions? General, we're starting at a general level.
Yeah, I don't have questions. I just have a general general comments about the process as it moves forward. So I'll wait for discussion.
Liz?
I liked the questions that Councilmember Resnikoff asked, so we'll get into discussion later.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to the public. As City Clerk, do we have anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back for council discussion. So one of the things I'd like to focus us in on is tonight is to receive this updated report. We all heard from the General Plan Advisory Committee. They did 5 years of work, and they basically said, okay, we've had our input. We're passing it to council. The staff report does say 3 unanimous questions. They all unanimously answered that they were done. But what it did not list is there were items that several GPAC members brought up that they wanted to see in further discussion for us to talk about as a council. And I think Rich and Paul has already alluded to some of those comments. So tonight we're trying to help formalize how to move forward. We're not necessarily making decisions tonight, but we want to provide the staff and the consultant enough information that they can come back to us maybe in a month and a half, and then direct us through how we start making changes to the administrative draft plan. So Rich, do you want to start?
Well, I'll keep it short. Like I said, I have a lot of comments, but since this probably will be my last hurrah, maybe I could say a couple things. I mean, I've stated even at that last meeting we had with the GPAC, but I think on page, looks like T6, it says, address the needs of people with disabilities and comply with the requirements of the ADA during the planning of new developments. And then we turn around here and say, strongly discourage the installation of drive-through facilities. And it mentions a second place also, that's LU 2-9. I mean, I'm a person with I broke my hip while on the council, and it hurts to get out. There are people that are handicapped that it takes a long time to get out of their car. There are people with kids. There are people that are sick. To just have some kind of blanket, we discourage drive-through or pickup. That's something that, if there's one thing makes me cringe, if anything, especially if we're going to get more high density housing, people need a way to pick up food. We're seeing that through the pandemic, but I think that's a trend that's certainly going to continue. So if there's one thing I feel the most strong on a specific policy, it would be that I just think drive-throughs are the opposite. They're very important in this day. Being able to pick up your food. There's a restaurant on Bascom that's was almost dying, and now they offer pickup. And I've never seen so many people lining up to get the food now. And it's a restaurant, sit-down restaurant, but they've taken advantage of that. Now I talked to the owner, they're doing incredibly well. So that's a change of scenery with people. And the more we add more high-density housing on Bascom, and people are going to have smaller kitchens with these configurations of housing, they're going to want the chance to pick up food. They're not going to want to eat in. I'm not sure where this thing is coming from. I don't know why we are saying this all of a sudden, but I'll leave it at that. It's just, if I have a parting wish as I'm leaving the council, it's, geez, leave and encourage fast food. I don't know, fast food, it could be a nice, 3-star restaurant, but the ability to drive up and get my food and take it home is very important if you're not physically able, if you have kids and you're bringing them home. As I say, if you're just not feeling good that day and you don't want to cook, don't make me wait go into the restaurant, wait in a line and all that stuff. Thank you. That's it for now.
Thank you, Rich. And they're going to probably come back before the end of this year. So this is not your last hurrah. Okay. I would like to add, and then I'll ask Ann, but first I'd like to add, if you look up the definition of fast food, which I had Paul Camoyan look up, it talks about pre-packaged food, which goes back to when McDonald's put a wrapper on their food and gave it out the window. So one is, what is the definition of fast food, since everybody is pre-packaging and doing curbside pickup? The other is, what is the definition of drive-through? Because people right now have curbside pickup. They keep their car potentially idling. So what is the difference if you drive through a little queue line or you sit in your space and have them come put it in your window? So I would ditto what you were talking about, Rich, is we need a better definition and really understand the implications, because there are days when I want to get in and out and drive through. And so, okay, Ann? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I look at this as the council needs to focus in on two different components. One is the changes to the land use map designation, which is, and then the significant policy changes that are going to be brought forward as a result of this. And by that, I mean the high level changes. And in reading through, I'm about 2/3 of the way through this, and it's not clear to me, I don't really totally understand exactly what the significant changes are, what the policy changes are. So for me, what I've done is, and this, I'm going to recommend this approach or see what other council members feel about it, is I don't really feel that it's productive for me to come to the council meeting and say, okay, well, what about this? Can you explain that? I'd rather do that at a staff level and present the questions that I have and ask for clarification so that I understand whether it's a change or not. And if it's something that I think that the council should debate about or talk about, I would ask that it be put on a list of significant items. I would also ask that staff prepare some type of a high level summary of, whatever the major changes are, if there's 5 of them, if there's 7 of them, and then through the individual discussion with the city manager or staff, whoever is appropriate from each council member, that those questions could then be added to the list, and that's what would come back to council to be discussed and evaluated. So to me, that seems a better use of everyone's time instead of bringing the whole thing and debating every little question or need for clarification. So those are the comments so far.
Great. I would agree with you, Ann, but let's hear from Paul.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so far I agree with everything that's been said. I don't want to get into a bunch of the policies now. I agree with Councilmember Waterman for a couple more reasons, even on that policy. But I just want to talk about what I meant by the categories I was talking about. So one of the policies, and I know this is a pet policy, long time coming for the vice mayor, which is gross versus net acreage. I've been listening to that since the planning commission days. And here's my point on that. I'm not against it. It has some consequences. I suspect when we discuss it, that your reasons for wanting it are totally compatible with what I would say we have to fix if we do it. So I think there's some we have to have a discussion on to say, yes, we can do it, but it affects this. How do we fix it? And I think that we can agree on that, but it's going to take a longer discussion than tonight. So that's an example of a policy. Too specific for me, some of the policy implementations or the actions reference specific assembly bills and state bills that are not going to last the entire length of this general plan probably, or could be usurped. Or it states that we should be supporting the RIDE program. It ought to be supporting either third-party ride sharing and things like that, but to name specific programs, I have a problem. We're not funding ride right now. We would be in violation of the general plan. So I think one way to accomplish that might be to submit those that we see that bother us, or as Councilmember Bobby said, that might be a staff thing. If our directive is we don't want to be specific and pigeonhole us into certain actions, then staff could do that for us. And if we don't then see the ones we found, we're just going to add in a few. So I like staff taking that direction if in fact we agree to that. And the last section would be what I call more inappropriate, not because the actions are inappropriate, but I think they're council discussions, not a general plan discussion. I see things in there about road diets and residential parking permits and blanket approval of funding measures for transportation. We would cringe if that said blanket approval of measures that support additional housing. We would just go nuts. So I think those things are discussions, all of them, that we should have as a council, but they shouldn't be actions in the document. And I think there was another one that talked about VTA passes for homeless students. A good cause, but I bet you we could have a couple hour discussion of who qualifies, why, how. And there's something that says about funding for staffing for economic development. Staffing is a budget item that shouldn't be in a general plan. So anyway, again, I think Councilmember Bobby's right. We could have staff look through that and maybe make recommendations of this is more a council procedure than or action than a plan, or we could submit them. My last quick comments, I'm not against submitting the ones I found to Brian, maybe to look and see is there a trend here that he might find for us or give to staff. And I think when we do that, we should come back. Councilmember Waterman mentioned that marathon meeting. I think we need one at some point to hash out all those things. And the last piece I'll say is, let's get all the input we can, but let's be cognizant. We have a 20 to 40% change in council coming up. We don't know what it is. That, in fairness, if it's on the high end, we need to accept that people have opinions coming in. Even at 20%, which we know is for sure, we should accept that. So we have to keep that in mind too, because I don't think we want to use a lot of staff time now and then find out that a council doesn't agree with what we're doing now. And because this won't be done by then, we won't waste the time. Doesn't mean everybody should have input now, but it's a thought. So that's, and I don't know if we can hear me. I just got a note when here it said my connection's unstable. So it's,
that's your fault.
You're unstable,
that's
Paul.
it for now.
Oh, darn, Mayor, it sounds like he's kicking me out again. I thought it was back here.
Okay, let's hear from Liz.
Okay, so I agree basically with what everybody's been saying. I would summarize my thoughts. I do think we need to discuss the land use map. Totally agree with Councilmember Bybee on that. I agree we need to identify high-level policy changes. That ties into what Councilmember Resnikoff just said. Some of them, do they really belong in a general plan? Are these really either policies from the council or whatever? Because we don't want to have to keep revising this document. Getting rid of some specifics like ride, totally agree with. So I think we could all make a list of things like that. I was a little concerned about the actions. Some of them, I was wondering if there was legal liability. It said, you know, things like you shall do a bicycle master plan, you shall do a tree master plan, you shall do all these things. And if they don't exist, what does that mean? If a project comes in and we don't have that, whatever, done, where does that leave the city?
So Bill, you want to answer?
Yeah, I think the vice mayor is making a very good point, because we do have to comply with our general plan when we approve projects, approve developments. And if we do not have in place the policies within a reasonable period of time after the general plan, then yes, your decisions could be subject to challenge.
So I think if we all look through the document and see things like that, we might keep that in mind as a comment point. The climate action plan, Ben, it's not done, right? Or we don't have a copy of it. And I was confused, and you can correct me. I was confused when I was reading a couple of sections of the general plan draft. They read as if they were climate action plans, and they should be in a climate action plan, not in the general plan.
The climate action plan is not done. We have done significant work on it, but it is not done, and it's not in a position to share with you. It's still
okay.
have to
So my comment would simply be, I do think we need to see that, even in a rough outline, because there's a lot of stuff in this document about sustainability and energy and gas and water and all kinds of things that I think might be better in the climate action plan. That's just a question. And one other thing, my favorite recent topic, people, so forgive me. We've got, you have in this document a lot of subjective statements, and there is some value to subjective statements, but you also have in your scope updating the ordinances to correspond with all of the land use and this document. We have had staff recently do some updates on several ordinances, I think related to objective standards for PDs and CPDs and maybe some other things. We just redid the C3 zoning, and now we have a consultant who is going to tweak all the existing documents for objective standards. So I think for me, there's a lot of things that aren't covered in those various steps. So my big question is, how are we going to pull all that together in one document? So I'm just, and you've got a scope, they've got a scope, and they've got a scope kind of thing. So I'm just wanted to see that. And
can I add on really quick to that, what you just said, just to, because I have a lot of things that come across as quite objective. I mean, subjective here, like require the use of landscaping to enhance yada, yada, yada. And there's probably a couple dozen of these that if I were, what does that mean? So I just wanted to add on to what you just said about it.
Yeah, exactly. City attorney has been helping me a little bit with my understanding of objective standards, and I think council would benefit from his answers to my questions. And the other one is there's been a lot of legislation changing things, and unfortunately, with no fault from Ben, that this has now extended to the beginning of the time frame to revise the land use map for the RENA numbers. And our RENA number is 3,964. And even at 45 units an acre, we need to come up with 88, 90 acres to accommodate that much housing. So I think the council will want to make a decision on how fast, when, and what to do to help move that forward. We've been advised and we've been given money by ABAG to do the land use changes to meet the new housing needs. So I just think council, that's one of those, I'm going to call it big topics the council has to think about on how we want to address, how we want to move forward on that. That's sort of my big picture list.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So I do want to thank staff and Ben for putting together this memo and report. It was a great summary from my perspective. It really got me up to speed on where we are, what and most importantly, what is not done. So I do want to thank you guys for putting that together. I like what Ann was saying. Definitely the land use map. I have several comments. Areas that we had originally talked about were taken out of the land use map. They only recommend one specific area plan. And my understanding in talking with Liz about housing and how it will impact us, if we don't have specific plans, then it's going to be easier. I think, Liz, is what you had told me. It would be easier for a developer to come in and force housing without a specific plan. Liz is shaking her head yes, that I got it right. I do see that there has been a lot of policy changes. Those are the ones that I can immediately catch. Because this whole document was not only reformatted, regrouped, and sentences were combined, I would like to see this high-level review of what the major changes were, as Anne mentioned. I do agree we need to be looking very carefully at objective versus subjective. There still is subjective things like Rich was saying, put in landscaping, what does that mean? Do you have to comply with the MWELO through the state, regulations that could be in there? When Paul was talking about not naming specific programs, I do agree with that. They can come and go, and like we said, is we're not in the RIDE program right now. How can you tell us we have to be that? That's a council policy decision. Let's see, what was the other thing? Rich talked about the drive-through. I mentioned that already. If defining that goes to objective standards. What does drive-through mean versus pickup and or curbside pickup? And also what fast food means and packaging. That apparently that definition is pretty old. And Liz has quite a lot of questions and comments. I have a lot around housing and how this plan is, how we're going to integrate with the RENA numbers and the housing element, which we will be starting next year. I take to heart what Paul said about the council change, but I think after 5 years of this plan, it would be good to have people like Rich and myself make comments now. We've been through this for quite a while, and I would hate to see us like wait and then not hear comments, especially because we know for sure Rich isn't going to be here. So, okay, so now the question is, how do we move forward? And I would like to see a study session, at least to get started, and that these broader questions that we're asking right now, that if staff and Ben can come back. So let me just summarize. We're going to have more of a comprehensive discussion about the land use plans. We're asking for a high-level review of what the policy changes are. We're looking for how this gets coordinated with the objective consultant that's working on ordinances. We're looking for how the things like gross versus net, that conversation about that. And then the implementation and action items, what really should not be in the general plan and what should be in the general plan. And then the last thing is what's missing. I see the specific plans, for instance, like on Bascom, some of the parcels that I thought the council had talked about are not shown. The Dell Avenue area does not show anything. So would you guys agree that that's kind of our next step? And in that timeline, I was hoping we would do it before the end of December. Do we have any comments on how to proceed? Rich, does that sound good? Okay, Anne, you're good? Something? Okay, Paul, does that sound like a way to move forward?
I am, and I agree with your comments. I wasn't trying to say don't take input. I was saying it won't be final, or it can't really be final until we have everybody. The only thing I would add to what you said is I do think we need that big meeting. Is it worthwhile if there are common things like the specificity and some of the things for staff to be looking at some of this in advance of our meeting to say we can clean up some of those? It saves us doing it there, and I think it'd be easier if I have 20 of them. Say, if they get 18 of them, it saves us a lot of time. So
I'll add that to my summary and saying, and Councilmember Bybee, Ann did mention this about let's put our individual questions together, give them to Brian, then we'll have staff look at them. And then when we do have this next meeting and study session, they can at least summarize at a broader level. There were 20, this many questions. Right. Okay.
And if there's consensus, they can do something with it. If there's not, we need to discuss it. Great.
Okay. Rich, you wanted to add on?
Yeah, I'll just agree with everyone, but, I'm sorry.
Can I just jump in?
Jump away.
If there is consensus, we still can't do anything until after we get approval at a meeting.
But Bill, they could
Because you
propose
can't
changes.
take action outside of a meeting.
Could staff propose changes with input?
Yes, absolutely. You can
That's all I'm
present
saying.
whatever you can present individually whatever you want to have changed, but it's going to have to be blessed at a meeting.
Right. I'm just asking to bring back, if they bring back an edited version that we have a commonality on, it certainly saves time versus a study session. That's all.
Correct.
Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I agreeing with everybody. I think the thing to kind of do this is obviously land use. There are some really big projects coming around, especially when we talk about the specific plan on Hamilton. I walked into a certain electronics store the other day and asked to see a computer. They didn't have a computer in the whole place, and it's a computer store. We'll leave the details out. Anyway, some big changes going on there. Obviously, the Hickory pit has come before us. That's in the public. This doesn't have the density that person or that company that's building wants. So and we go through and through. Obviously, you mentioned Dell Ave already. And the question would be, okay, can we each sit with Brian or whoever and say, okay, these are the two areas and get it down to 3 or 4 areas that we're going to discuss, rather than, as we've done in the past, say, okay, there's the area on Winchester on the east side and the area on San Tomas, and we wind up with 40 or 50 areas that we want to discuss. The thing is, can we get that down to a manageable? The rest of them say we're going to leave that to the general plan now. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to do that. That would be great, and then leave the rest as is, because we've tried this a couple times. They're always very, very long discussions just on the areas and what we want to change on the areas. Thank you.
Okay, Liz?
Rich, talking about the drive-throughs, I'm not, believe it or not, against drive-throughs. I think the issue really is a matter of adjacencies and disruption and traffic kind of things. And I think there's a way to solve that without prohibiting drive-throughs, or whatever you want to call it. Just lost my other train of thought.
So let me focus you back in for a second. So the question is how we move forward. The proposal right now is the council would write their list of questions or comments, give them to Brian for them to consolidate. The staff would look at these high-level changes in a summary, and then what the changes to the land use plan are, and these other action items.
So following up on Rich's other point about how to focus on land use issues, it'll take some thought with the consultant, Ben, and staff to figure out how to deal with this. My favorite topic, again, is Plan 2050. They have not produced a map of where they expect us to develop, and that might be a starting point. May not be the right place, but it's just a thought.
Okay, so Brian and staff, do you have enough information from us to get prepared to come back? And Brian, you and I had talked before of coming back either the end of November or the beginning of December. And this would not be to finalize things. This would be to get input from everybody. And again, based on what we have asked for.
Yeah, I think we have enough information. I'll look forward to working with each council member on their questions and comments so we can compile those. And we'll have to sort of find a date that works for everyone for a study session. It sounds like it could be a lengthy discussion, so we'll want to set aside enough time to at least get through the meat of it. So I believe we've got enough direction tonight.
Okay, would it be possible on whatever day we pick for the study session that later that night on the council that we would have some level of action item like what Bill was saying? Is that not ready for that yet?
Well, I'll have to think through how that process works. I'm not sure we're ready for that yet, but we'll have to think about the timing and regroup on the process here.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was trying to get to giving you the information we need? I see Paul raising his hand.
Quick question, Brian. Depending on the time frame, is there any indication that we could actually do a real meeting at that, in December or so? I actually, is a topic I think would be good to be in a room, even spread out versus Zoom. So is that potentially going to change in the next couple of months?
It won't, but we could see how we can accommodate perhaps in a much larger space. How we do that, maybe some people participate by Zoom, but we have the council members in one space.
Like OCBH or something. I just think this is a big topic. I think something how this would be easier, if we remember how to go back to real meetings.
Yeah, maybe a hybrid that could work.
I think it would help, to be honest. I think it would be a better discussion if we were in a room, to be honest.
I agree, and it would be good to have a map in front of us. I'm getting a lot of feedback tonight. People are cutting in and out, and I don't think that just serves us well in this lengthy conversation.
Correct.
So I would certainly encourage staff to have our study session in person as much as we can. Rich, did you have a comment? I see your mic's on.
No, December may be a little difficult for me because I might be at my other place, but that's okay. I can call in or make it work. That'll give us, there's only 4 people, you can be distanced, and then I'll call in or something.
Okay, so we're good on everything, you guys? Thank you again. Nice to see you. All right, we're going to go on to our next
Thanks for all the
item.
hard work and patience with us.
5 years, boy, man, this has been a lot of work. It's the Never Die project, right?
So I have one important question for Ben. When he started, he had a brand new baby. How old is that baby, and are there any new babies?
No new babies. The brand new baby is a kindergartner who can read and ride his bike and never slows down. So
I thought we were going to hear 12.
As I recall, you stayed way late instead of going home and helping your wife.
I have a question for the council members that have been around a while. Do you remember the meeting with the futurist? We had a design workshop over at Orchard City Banquet Hall, and the futurist came.
Yes.
Ben, were you a part of that?
no, this is not ringing a bell. I feel like I'd remember a futurist.
Oh yeah, I would find, I don't know, Paul Camoyan, if you could find the video and that information. It's pretty funny, some of the things that we talked about in that meeting.
I
Remember
have
that,
all that information, so if you need it, I can get it for you.
I would love to have Ben see what we had planned back 5 or 6 years ago. Okay, new business.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank
Thanks, guys.
you. We're going to receive a monthly fiscal update for our budget, and we have Will, and I'm going to ask the same question. I think he has 1 or 2 slides. If we want to limit it to that, and then we can focus on the conversation. Hey, I like we're all at City Hall here. Paul's sitting in front of me in the chambers and Will's out front. Go ahead, Will.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, the mayor and the council. I will just take the time to share the screen here. Quickly. All right. So tonight I'll be giving the October of fiscal report. It's the third fiscal update for fiscal year 2021. And I will just go through the 2 slides so that we are able to get to council discussion and council questions at the end. Let me just go to the next slide. A council council report attached to the agenda gave a great a deal of detail about us Isles tax, TOT, and also the economy. So I won't repeat all of the detail in the staff report, but I will give council a couple of key takeaways that they can take that they can take from the report, and that will also carry into the future as well. In regards to the total sales tax amount for fiscal year 20. It stayed the same that you saw in the September update. The only difference is that in the report, it also showed the business sector detail from April through June, and in the detail you saw a significant decreases in a general retail in the restaurants, and also in fuel and in new car sales. But I will caution the council that it's for the period of April through June. I do expect that the period from July through September will be a lot different than the period from April to June, and then also the period of October through December will also be well. It could be a lot different than the period of July through September, and also the one from April to June. And then in regards to a TOT, it's still a big area of concern. It's one that will continue to need to pay attention to each month, and also to give the council a current update each month, so that we are able to hit our end of the year target. We'll need to earn about 250K per month in TOT. Right now, for the month of August, we're only at about 169K in total. So it will need to go up to 250K per month in total, so that we are able to hit the end of the year target. So we continue to be concerned about TOT. The occupancy in our hotels does appear to be jumping up But also at the same time, the room rates per hotel, they seem to have decreased as well. So it will be a thing that we'll continue to pay attention to and continue to give council an update on a TOT each month. And then in regards to the economy itself, it does still continue to grow, but it's definitely a slow growth, and the future growth of the economy could really depend in the next couple of months upon any additional aid that we are able to get from Congress and that we're able to get from the federal the federal government. And if there is a new aid bill, this could also help Campbell, but we aren't counting on any aid. We don't know when aid will come, and we also it's uncertain what kind of aid could come or the details. So we'll still need to continue to pay attention to any aid that could come up, because it could both help the economy in general, but also help Campbell. So in conclusion, there's still not enough data to put them together on any type of trend that would go through the end of June. We've only got about two months of complete data. So it's not enough to determine a trend, and enough to project out both our income and expenses through June. But we will be able to come December, and then also in the upcoming report that will be given in November. We will also compare the Q1 income and expenses to the budget for the period of July through September as well. So you will get a current update as to how our income and expenses compare to the budget. But we'll also discuss a potential process to do a mid-year adjustments if the data and if the end of the year projections, if they indicate that we do need to do adjustments. So we'll also attempt to get a couple of council touch points in between, so that if we do need to make mid-year budget adjustments, that we've went through the discussion and we're set to go. So at this point, I'll go to any discussion and any council questions.
Okay, thank you. Can you put down the slide for a minute so I can see everybody's head nodding or questions?
So I'll do it. There you go.
Oh, great, thank you. So I'll start with questions. Rich, no. Ann, no. Paul, no. Liz, no. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I understand how we don't have firm numbers and that there's still information that we need. I want to thank you for giving us an update. I will ask the city clerk if there's anybody from the public who wishes to speak.
There is not.
Okay. Is there any other comments or discussion the council would like to have since we are not voting on this? Liz? Oh, Ann?
Ann waved your hand.
Okay. Ann?
That's all right? Okay.
You went back on mute, Liz.
Thanks. So I'm just going to summarize what I think I heard. I appreciated that last slide. Staff was helpful in answering my questions in advance. So one is, we're not in any worse shape for 2020 the way it's looking. That I appreciated knowing. Two, it's too early to figure out the trends for 2021, which is not what I wanted to hear, but I understand it. We're going to get another update in December and then January, but not get a real mid-year adjustment till February. So my comment, request, however you want to phrase it, is that I would like not to get to February and find out we've got to take some action. Yeah, I'm being the optimistic pessimist again. I would like to know in January, it's trending that we're in trouble. I know in January some of the things we should be thinking about. So when we come in February with the legitimate mid-year budget adjustments, we're prepared to take action, because I don't want to lose another 2 months in trying to figure out what we're going to do next. So that's basically my request. If I have to wait till February, I will, but I want to be prepared.
Thank you, Ann.
So I wanted to thank staff for the presentation. I do appreciate the monthly update. It is helpful to know where we're at. And I just have a general comment that I just ask that staff continue to be proactive in their monitoring of the situation, and that we know as soon as possible as far as any type of correction strategies that are going to need to be taken sooner than later, and that we also, our staff is also proactive in their development of the next year's budget, so that all programs and services are looked at and evaluated, and to use the minimal amount of reserves.
I would think we would all agree on that. Rich or Paul, do you have any comments you'd like to make? No? So thank you, Will, for putting this together. I like your slide and your little graphics you had over on the side. That was very cute. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last item. Thank you.
If I may, I think I was just going to say, I thought the staff report was very good. It gave me the kind of information I needed so that when we got to the council meeting, we didn't have to rehash all of that. the staff report was complete and I could follow where he was going with the information. So
Good.
I appreciated that.
Thank you so much, council member.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, and staff who helped you. Okay, so our last item is committee reports. Rich?
Had one meeting the other day, which was the library JPA Finance Subcommittee, which sounds quite exciting, I'm sure to most. It was rather Orwellian, I guess what you might call it. I don't know what the right word. So as everybody knows, the library, as most of the libraries in our JPA, I guess all of them have been closed for quite a few months now. And they showed us the finance, and the revenue is booming and the expenses are booming, and it's like a big holiday. So I mean, the reason, of course, is they get all their money from property tax, which is not experience any downturn. So unlike most of the cities, the library and anybody else gets their money from the county is, I don't know what to make of that, but that's what it is. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, just a few meetings. I had the monthly meeting of the TPAC, which is the treatment plant in San Jose that relates to sanitation district. My city association, also the monthly meeting West Valley Sanitation District.
You're really cutting out there, Paul.
Yeah, my internet connection's going wonky, so I apologize.
Yeah, everybody was cutting out a little bit tonight.
It's coming in and out all night. Sorry.
Okay. Ann? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I attended a DCBA meeting last week, a VTA PAC meeting where it was no action items, all information only. And then I also attended the annual league conference, the virtual conference. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I couldn't get in to the General Assembly as the voting delegate for the city. So, and I was alone, and they unfortunately didn't have enough delegates to sustain a quorum. So the vote that was made was an advisory vote. So kind of interesting. Other than that, the rest of the conference went pretty well.
Did you have another your committee on unhoused since
The
our last
unhoused,
time?
it was actually rescheduled to this Thursday due to a conflict last week. So the last meeting will be this Thursday, and then I'll have a report to the council.
Great, thank you. Liz?
Okay, thank you. As you know, ABAG is meeting double, triple the amount of times that they usually meet because of the Plan Bay Area 2050 and the RENA numbers. So last Thursday was a 6-hour marathon on that are relevant for us. One is the RENA number methodology. The number has been assigned to the Bay Area and has been assigned to this RENA committee to develop the methodology. So the 440,000 housing units are assigned around the county. And methodology recommended by the committee was accepted with great distress. I mean, total distress. Santa Clara County had the biggest increase. And the premise was that Santa Clara County has the most jobs. There was a counter proposal by Contra Costa County, which did even more of the burden to Santa Clara County. So sticking with the recommended methodology was better than nothing, but it's not good. So Campbell's number right now is 3,964. Process of about 2 months where there's going to be some public outreach and discussion of the methodology, but it's going to be about in January when cities will have about 2 months to appeal. The problem with appealing is that the number is a fixed number, so it's a zero sum. The number's got to go somewhere kind of thing. So getting an appeal is not particularly likely. challenge for Campbell is the 2050 plan, which established the baseline assumptions for opportunities, high opportunity for jobs and high opportunity for transit. And they also kept in all the old VTA stops on Vasona. So our best shot is to really work hard to get corrections made that will help us reduce that. So I'm encouraging and have spoken with Brian about this. The item that was discussed has to do with something that helps cities, maybe, and this is one of the reasons they're pushing us to start the land use map soon, is there's the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority. That's the stuff that was set up by 1487's legislation. And because there was no money on the ballot this year, they established a committee at ABAG MTC staff and consultants to try and come up with generic information for each city and each county, help them plan for their RENA number allocation. Don't know what that means, but it's coming. There is potential additional funding from the REAP money for collaboratives like the one that the Cities Association is doing. So there's a lot happening there, awful lot happening there. The next one, I don't know if staff has the slide up for you. This one I thought would be easier to write out for you. This is the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We just did a strategic plan update, which is very interesting because it talked about these major points. There's a community resilience planning assistance at no cost to the cities. I've mentioned this a couple of times. The planning grant coming to us right now is $30,000, and they have also hired a consultant to help cities plan for resilience. So that should be, and I think Brian got an official notice from the group this past week. There's a power pre-K agreement. I don't mean to make anybody bored, but this should make people feel good. There's a basic financial tool that the JPA can use, which will help save $3 million annually. And that's a lot of money that can go to programs and reducing rates. So that's a great thing. And then the other one, of course, everybody's very worried about is the PSPSs and the power shutoffs. So there's a major new purchase effort to do long-term energy storage that can take us through the humps of nights and days and keep things up and running. So that's a big deal. And then the vehicle charging stations, the amount of money for Santa Clara County went all the way up to $35 million. So all the staff and all the departments have information for anybody coming into Campbell who can take advantage of this grant money for vehicle charging stations at residential places, multifamily and everything. And then the eHub, which is the new webpage I mentioned, which has lots of consumer resources, really great information. It has a whole section on buying electric vehicles, and it tells you 4 or 5 different sources for rebates. Some of them go up to as much as $4,500. And that ends on October 30th. So all of these things are worth checking out to help save money and keep the grid solid and keep us in power.
Thank you. So I haven't had committee meetings, but I will report the Recycling and Waste Reduction Commission is our next meeting will be reviewing the implementation of SB 1383. This is the program through the state about food composting and recycling and other requirements. They're getting now to the final language. They're only 2 years behind schedule. But the thought is it'll start being implemented next year. I did participate in the Plan 2050 EIR scoping meeting. I did ask the question, Right now, transit corridors count as bus lines, but there's no nexus of permanently making that bus line stay. So if there's a bus line now and we build high density housing and the bus line goes away, what happens? So I did participate in that. Every week, Cindy Chavez has a call with all the mayors on a Saturday morning. We get to talk about a lot of different programs. This week was focused on the registrar of voters and ballot collection. We talk a lot about testing. We also talked about some of these health groups are being fined for not providing testing. And I heard that on a Saturday, and I went to my doctor's on a Monday and they had a big sign, free testing. They said, we were forced to do that today. I said, that's great. So I think that's it for my report. Does anybody have any other, for the good of the order here, comments? You're on mute, Liz.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the button, thanks. The Campbell Ministerial Group is holding another Thanksgiving event for Campbell, and it will be virtual, but it's going to be a very nice presentation, and it's going to be a streaming event as opposed to a Zoom meeting. And I don't have the time and date yet, but that should be very nice.
Great, thank you. All right, everybody, thank you for participating tonight. All our wonderful public that's out there listening, thank you. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Bye.